Everyone, we're about to begin. If everyone could take their seats. Impacted family members, please move to the empty seats in the front if you feel comfortable. If you feel comfortable. Please move and fill in the empty seats to the front. We will have you introduce yourself and a little bit about your lost loved one. Okay. And now I'm going to turn this over to Paloma for the welcome.
I'd like to thank everyone. My name is Paloma Serna. My daughter is Elisa Serna, who died in custody November 11th of 2019. I'm here, and I thank you guys for attending. We welcome you here. I know we started late. We have press here that wants to be able to do interviews with families. And so, like I said, once again, we thank you. And we'd like to welcome the new director of the In Custody Death Review from Sacramento, Allison Ganter. And we also have her team here. We have Jana Stanford Miller and also Michael Lee. And then we have their IT director, Antonio. So I will turn this over back to Yusef.
Thank you, Paloma. I will do the land acknowledgement. Our indigenous rep, he could not make it today, so I'll just do a quick land acknowledgement. We here in Escondido, we're standing on the traditional unceded territory of both the Payakumwicham, which some people call the Luiseno, and the Kumeyaay lands. And depending on where people are watching from on Zoom, you're on one of those two indigenous lands. We like to say that we respect that we are here on unceded territory as guests, and we cherish and honor the land as our indigenous siblings have done before us. In this way, that we can make sure that we protect the land, our air, our seas. All of us are benefactors of such cherishment. And we want to encourage us to continue doing that on this indigenous lands. Now, back to my part. It runs right into my part. My name is Yusef Miller. I'm the executive director of the North County Equity and Justice Coalition and Saving Lives in California. Saving Lives in Custody, California, sorry. I want to give you a basic history on how we got here and what we're doing here. This movement, Saving Lives in Custody, started out of the North County Equity and Justice Coalition. In 2020, we said, what is a project, what is a campaign that we can work on that doesn't have enough attention that is going on in San Diego County? And what we found is, by reading the UT, the Union Tribune of San Diego, with investigative journalism from Kelly Davis, Jeff McDonald, and others, in a series called Dying Behind Bars. In that horrible situations that we've read through, I came across one name particularly that stood out to me, and it was the death of Elisa Serna in 2019. When I read about her death, initially from the Civilian Law Enforcement Review Board, it seemed that no one is going to be held accountable. And we said, no, that's impossible. Someone needs to be held accountable. We need community support, all of you. We need community support to raise the alarm and say we need a deeper dive into what's going on in these counties with these families. This happened in 2020. We started the campaign, Saving Lives in Custody campaign, in 2020, August of 2020, and we started mobilizing the community. As that's going on, other families saw what was going on, and it was a huge Me Too movement. They're coming in and saying, I lost my loved one. I lost my loved one also. I have no information. I want to know what's going on with my loved one. It's been this many years, that many years. And the ball kept rolling and rolling, and we were really on to an issue that was inspired by the UT that got us into this position to speak up for families. And as you see today, these families have come together and became a family under this crisis that we have in San Diego County. In 2022, we were the highest in custody death rate in the entire state of California. We have since dropped in our in custody death rate, but the nature of some of these deaths are still abhorrent, and there's a lot of work still left to be done. So as we're moving through this campaign, grassroots, no money, $0 and 0 cents. And the reason why I bring that up is because everyone sitting in this audience, if you want to do something good for the community and you do it from your heart, it takes the exact amount of $0 and 0 cents to get it going. As we're doing this movement with our allies, many different organizations throughout San Diego County, North County, East County, South County, we had people coming up and supporting us from all organizations and elected officials and prior elected officials. Finally, the word got up to Dr. Akilah Weber's office, which she was an assembly member at the time. Dr. Akilah Weber, she is now currently a senator. She started a bill called AB 2343, and it was named after our campaign, Saving Lives in Custody Act 2343. And we mobilized the community in San Diego. Call your elected officials, your senators, your assembly members, call your mayors, call your congresspeople, everyone to support this bill as it goes up. And everyone did. Family members came in and they supported it. They had a resounding success. And this act, this bill, came after the audit, the state audit for in-custody deaths. The state looked at our in-custody death issue and said there needs to be an audit. This was also initiated by Dr. Akilah Weber. And when they came in and did their results, it was a really scathing report on the in-custody deaths in San Diego County. And the act was built off of that. It came after that. On that audit hearing, our very own Paloma Serna was an expert witness. The rest of us, we had to call in for 10 seconds. My name is Yusef Miller. I'm with North County Equity and Justice Coalition. I approve this audit and hang up. But Paloma had 3 minutes to discuss the loss of her daughter, which mirrored the loss of a lot of other people and their family members. And it really moved that audit hearing. And after everyone throughout the state heard these talks and what's going on in the families, Dr. Akilah Weber launched her bill and named it after our grassroots campaign. As it's going through in that year, we had bipartisan support. It went up the Assembly, it went up the Senate, both houses, Republican, Democrat, everyone was for it, and it got vetoed in 2022 by our governor. He vetoed it. But did we give up? Absolutely not. This is not a sprint. This has always been a marathon, and it is still a marathon. So what did we do? Dr. Akilah Weber, she's not the one to give up. She put it in again the same way, but now this is a new year, she had to change the number. AB 268. So the number changed, the intent is the same. What is the intent of 268? 268's intent is to put a medical professional and a mental health professional as chairs in the BSCC, among other things. So this goes up and it's vetoed. When it starts the following year, 2023, there's a companion bill that comes out to support it. And that's the reason for us visiting today. The companion bill was SB 519 by Senator Atkins. SB 519 required that there is a director of in-custody deaths, someone specifically to look at in-custody deaths throughout the state and to build a team. And that's who we have here today, Director Ganter, who is the director from that bill. So now this bill has been initiated by Senator Atkins, and now we're pushing 2 bills, grassroots. All the families you see here with these shirts on, all of these families, you saw them pushing for this bill and the other bill, AB 268. We're pushing these twin bills up the 2023, and we didn't know whether it was going to pass or fail because we were disappointed by the year prior, but we fought like we were lions. These families fought, they turned their pain into advocacy, and they fought. Then when it came time for the governor to sign, he signed both bills into law. These families that are sitting before you created 2 laws in the state of California from family work and family elbow grease with $0 and 0 cents. Once that bill was signed into law in 2023, it was to be enacted in July 2024. And then they started the search for who would be the director. And that director was selected, Director Allison Ganter. And a little bit about Allison Ganter. Sorry, let me pull up my notes. We just met not long ago. She just got the seat. So. Director Allison Ganter was appointed to the BSCC, the Board of State and Community Corrections. This board oversees all the jails in the state of California. As Director of In-Custody Death Review by Governor Gavin Newsom in October 2024, and is currently building a division to reflect the requirements outlined in Senate Bill 519, which I just gave you the background to. Prior to her appointment as director, Ms. Ganter served as the Deputy Director of Facilities, Standards, and Operations Division. During her tenure as the Deputy Director, Ms. Ganter built an enhanced inspection process which doubled the number of statewide inspections and aligned regulatory requirements with national best practices, while also bringing increased transparency and public engagement to the regulatory process through stakeholder input and extensive public comments. Prior to coming to the BSCC, as a field representative in 2000, Ms. Ganter served as the New York State Assembly and the New York State Commission of Corrections. She holds a bachelor's and master's of arts degree in criminal justice from the University of Albany, New York. Family, friends, I give to you Director Ganter.
So I would like to introduce the families that are here. San Diego County has over 300 deaths. I know everyone has their opinions regarding the numbers, but it is over 300 deaths. And so the families that we have here, we would like for them to stand up and as they speak and tell us your story about your loved one. And also, too, we have, and I'm sorry, one death is too much, but we have Tammy Wilson, her husband, Omar Moreno Arroyo. We have Gilbert Gil, daughter, Jennifer Smith. We have Dan Yates, his son, Brandon Yats. We have the Settles, Matus Settle. We have Vianna Granillo, Diana Sanchez, and Bev. We also have Saxon Rodriguez, Sabrina, and Sunday Weddle. We have my daughter, Elisa Serna, who would represent her sister, Elisa Serna. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anyone else. But we're here to support. We also have the Ruppards. Justino got up. So we have Justino Ruppard and his brother who's here for Lonnie Ruppard. And then we also have, we do support and we do say their name of Keith Bach that died here in San Diego. We have Isaiah Hernandez who died in the San Bernardino jail in West Valley. We also have Richard Matus from the Riverside County. We also have Abdul Kamara, whose family was here last week, and they had to fly back home to Virginia. We have also Hayden Schuck, whose family live in Orange County. We have Raymond Vogelman, Pedro Jr Ornelas, and we have many, many more. So if the family could, we have Cheryl Canson, I'm sorry. We have Cheryl Canson and also Gina Burns, who are one of our supporters here at the Saving Lives of California and the North County Equity and Justice Coalition. They have sons that are incarcerated, and they suffer with mental illness. And so we stand side by side with them to help them and support them and make sure that their sons are not included into our list. So thank you for being a support for us. And we have Tom Packer here also. And so if okay. So if I could have family members talk, if they would like to speak. Okay.
Hello, my name is Sabrina Weddle. I am the older sister of Saxon Rodriguez. Saxon Rodriguez, I'm here with my mom as well, Sunday Weddle. Saxon Rodriguez died July 20th, 2021 in San Diego Central Jail, just 4 days after being booked for a crime that I know he did not commit. Unfortunately, he died the day before his court date, so he didn't get a chance to prove that he was innocent. I don't know whose this is. Saxon overdosed on fentanyl and methamphetamine, again, 4 days into his stay at San Diego County Jail. It was determined by CLERB that the San Diego sheriffs failed to keep the drugs that he died on out, as well as the San Diego medical examiner stated that the 5 minutes and 28 seconds that they exceeded their 60-minute checks. They checked him at 65 minutes and 28 seconds. The medical examiner stated that that 5 minutes and 28 seconds cost him his life. He was already dead upon arrival. The deputies Brian Powell, Andrew Randovich, Maxwell Rimple, and Andre Wenzer were the 4 deputies working the 4th floor, Team 2, the day that he died, and they will never be held accountable. The nurses Melissa Burns, Reggie Barreto, Carrie Cavello, Ria Encarnacion, Caitlin Hendricks, Marlena Banza, Kelly Payne, Levy Santos, and Chantel Williams. 9 nurses couldn't save my brother. And to this day, 3 years later, we have no case because what? The sheriffs can't be held accountable? Saxon's death took place in 2021, which was one of the years where there was 18 deaths. 2022 followed by 19 deaths. 2023, 13, and this year, 8. Yeah, we're not in double digits, but there's still deaths happening. San Diego jail is still one of the highest drug intakes. Where are these drugs coming from? Are the scanners not working? Kelly Martinez says she's wanting to scan her staff, but yet then says dogs are overworked. They can't do their job. I also want to speak for Pedro Jr.'s family, who's not here. Pedro Jr. committed suicide after asking for help. They came looking for him when he was already brain dead in a hospital to give him the help that he asked for. I hope with these new changes that people get their answers. I still want to know, did my brother have fentanyl for breakfast? Or did he leave? You know, we still have a lot of answers, and I hope that we continue to get them. I don't know who this is.
I'm Justina Ruppard, son of Lonnie Ruppard, who died in custody at the San Diego Central Jail March 17, 2022. His death was ruled a homicide due to the ineffective care and treatment of his schizophrenia. My father had known psychotic disorders and was dependent upon others for his care. They prescribed him medication to combat his schizophrenia, but my father continuously rejected meals and his medication. My father's cause of death was dehydration, malnutrition, pneumonia, an ulcer, pulmonary emphysema, and COVID-19. He lost his He lost 1/3 of his body weight, which was 60 pounds, and only weighed 105 pounds when they found him unresponsive. The whole time that he was incarcerated, which was 3 months, his vital signs were not checked, and he was placed on administrative segregation where he deteriorated mentally and physically. To let it be known, his living conditions were inhumane. His cell was full of trash, food with insect larvae in it, food smeared across the walls, and excrement in the toilet and throughout his living space. My father was a pre-detention detainee, and they deemed my father incompetent to stand trial 3 days before his death by a psychiatrist. I truly believe that my father did not belong in jail in the first place, and he should have got treatment inside a facility where antipsychotics are administered to stabilize my father. He was ignored and treated like a dog.
Make sure you see my daughter's face here. Yes. My name is Diana Sanchez. My daughter's name was Vianna Granillo. She died on July 13th, 2022. She died in Las Colinas jail. And she was arrested wrongfully for a warrant that was non-existent. She was in jail 5 days when they found her unresponsive in her cell. And first of all, they failed to put her on in detox. She clearly stated to the deputies and medical staff that she was withdrawing from fentanyl. And so they failed to initiate detox, to put her into detox. She told them that she was suffering, that she needed to be in detox, and they didn't put her in a detox. And so when they did their rounds, they found her unresponsive in her cell. And then when they did find her, they failed to give her CPR for 12 minutes. You know, they didn't give her CPR. And when they finally brought out the tank, it was a damaged tank. And then even then, they didn't perform. They didn't call 911 or do any life-saving measures. So I don't know what happened to my daughter. I don't know. Nobody called anybody right away. We didn't know until, and when they finally called my mother, she was in a coma. We don't know what happened. We don't know anything. They didn't release any records or anything. I don't know if my baby was asking for me. I don't know anything about my daughter, what her last moments were. Was she asking for her mom? I bet she probably was. The last moments of my daughter's life, we have no idea. She was 25 years old. I ask you, I need justice, I need answers. 25 years old, she wasn't even supposed to be there. For a freaking warrant? She was a drug addict, yeah, but that doesn't mean she doesn't deserve the best medical care. She was innocent until proven guilty, I tell you. She was an American citizen. Addicts' lives matter. You guys are supposed to protect and serve. Doesn't matter. American citizens, right? We still need medical care. And Addicts' Lives Matter. I'm a recovering addict. I'm proof that we do recover. I just want reform. I want something to happen. Now my daughter left a beautiful son, 6 years old. I just want justice. I want reform. I want answers.
Hi, my name is Tammy Wilson. My husband, Omar Moreno Arroyo, died January 6th of 2021. Omar was having a mental health crisis that day, so I called 911 for help. Instead of an ambulance coming for Omar, 3 deputies showed up at my door, immediately arresting Omar. They took him to the men's central jail, where he stayed in a holding cell for 12 hours before he died, choking to death on a cloth face mask. Omar shouldn't have been in jail in the first place. He was having a mental health crisis. He hadn't committed any crimes. We were at our home, and instead of them monitoring him or putting him in a medical unit, they left him in a holding cell where he died alone on the floor. And we just need more medical care in the jails. We need mental health care in the jails. The jails is not a place for someone to be that's having a mental health crisis. It's outrageous. That's not where they need to be. Thank you. Take this part, take this part, take this part.
Fix this. My name is Jennifer Schmidt. My dad was Gilbert Gil. He died Valentine's Day 2022 in the Vista jail. We called 911 for an ambulance. He had dementia. The police informed us they were taking him to the hospital because no ambulance showed up. The hospital insisted on keeping him, but they insisted on taking him to jail. They admitted him into jail at 3 a.m. and gave him 5 units of insulin, and not another time did a nurse ever talk to him again. For 16 hours, he laid there suffering, naked in his own feces on the floor of a cell that deputies walked by every hour, but no nurse ever talked to him again. He lost his life in cell 3 in Vista, and I still don't have answers. It's been 1,034 days, and I still don't have any answers. We need transparency. We need them to be honest. We shouldn't have to sue them to get answers for what happened to our loved ones. There's days that I can't even function because that was my dad, but I have to keep pushing because I don't want any other daughter to ever feel how I feel, and it's just not fair. He's never even had a traffic ticket, and for this to happen is uncalled for and unjust, and I just want change. Thank you. What did we got?
I'm sorry, the system, so you have to hold it together.
I'm Dan Yates, the father of Brandon Yates. Brandon died in January of this year. His story began in the hospital. He was being treated for sepsis, and the hospital released him. We were not aware because of his age. They didn't notify us. He was arrested under the charge of burglary. It took us a few weeks to ever see a copy of the arrest warrant, but best we can tell, he was looking for shelter. He had 10 cents in his pocket. He was in jail for less than 2 days. He was never arraigned. Upon admission to the jail, they didn't check to see that he had a recent history of mental illness. We had tried to take advantage of the care court, but were unsuccessful in getting him treatment. He was placed in a jail cell with 2 other inmates, and he was saying some things that disturbed them, probably talking about God. He thought he was an apostle at times, and they demanded he be moved. He was placed into a different jail cell with an individual that also had suffered from some mental illness. That individual murdered Brandon within an hour. There are details I can't discuss because it's an active murder trial, but he did not deserve to die. Thank you.
Just going to speak. for the settles.
So my name is David Settles. I'm the brother of Matthew Settles. Here on my shirt, Matthew passed away at the George Bailey Jail in 2022. He was the 18th person to die that year. So Matthew's story, my brother had schizophrenia. He was schizoaffective for quite a while. He had been diagnosed. He was at college at UCLA. He actually graduated. He had a lot of struggles, but he had a lot of support from my mom, who was always caring for him. Myself, he grew up with my kids and my wife. He had a lot of good years. He needed a lot of help. He was in boarding homes, but a lot of good years until he had a mental health crisis. And he had to go back into the hospital. At that point, he was in extreme crisis. He was believed people were imposters. And so he was back, worked his way through a couple hospitals, back into the county. He was in the county medical hospital. He was a ward of the state. He was actually under conservatorship. And he was really emaciated, and he would get into fights. He thought he was delusional. He was brought to the jail, and when he was brought to the downtown jail, within 2 days. He was assaulted. In his cell, he had 57 stitches. And at this point, he was seriously, in a crisis. He was literally delusional, taken from the county mental hospital, not put in the psych ward, or really given any treatment in jail. He was assaulted. My mom had been reaching out, trying to reach him, but we didn't even find out that he was then transferred to George Bailey, where we continued to, could not. My mom was constantly trying to contact him, completely out of touch. He really got zero treatment. He was put in, he was segregated, so he was completely isolated without any treatment. Within a month, a little over a month, he passed away. He committed suicide in a cell in George Bailey, and while he was in isolation. So he did not get the treatment, and we're here. That's just not right. I mean, Gina's and Cheryl's children, they deserve help for their mental illness.
Again, we didn't get any information. I do not know the last few weeks of my son's life. I could not talk to anyone to find out if he was getting any treatment. He was alone. He couldn't read. It's just unconscionable to put a mentally ill person in that when they have all kinds of studies to show that it's the worst thing. And my heart goes out to all the other people who either had their loved ones from drugs or from mental illness. I see this whole thing about mental illness. They are not treating the mentally ill correctly in jail, and there's too many deaths because of it.
So I'm Matthew's sister-in-law. I've known Matthew most of my life. Dave and I went to high school together, so I've known him since I was 15 years old, and I'm quite a bit older than that right now. My 3 kids grew up with my brother-in-law, and we were all very, very close. I hear this repeatedly, just that the mentally ill are being incarcerated. And it's boggling to me. I mean, I have a master's in public health, and this is a new field for me to understand, you know, what's going on in the jails and prisons as well. But you know, for our purposes, the jails today, you know, and these people are supposedly innocent until proven guilty, right? I mean, jails are just a holding cell, they're holding place. A lot of these people that are cycled through the jails aren't even convicted of crimes because they're not even capable mentally of being held accountable of their crimes that they're convicted of. So it's like, you know, it's absolutely baffling to me how broken our system is. And my brother-in-law had absolutely zero business, and I heard somebody else mention this morning, being in jail. He was taken out of a mental health facility. Okay, I mean, he's spent most of his adult life being a ward of the state, and you know, going in and out of mental institutions, well documented. This is well documented. How did they not document right away when he was in intake that he is mentally ill? How did he end up in George Bailey, which absolutely has no mental health facilities whatsoever? How did he end up in isolation, which is documented to be the worst possible? Actually, a position statement, a policy statement of APHA says that it can be considered, and the National Institute of Health says that it can be a form of torture for especially for mentally ill people, seriously mentally ill people. So I just don't understand how this is possible in our day and age. And apparently, you know, a recent SANDAG report says that 40% of the people that enter into the jail have a diagnosed mental illness. 40%. And doing more research, I'm finding out this is not unusual nationwide, that our mentally ill people are being treated by sheriffs. I mean, is that the provider of choice? If you had, you know, depression, would you go to the sheriff's department? No, of course you wouldn't. I mean, how is it that, you know, for the general population, we know that this is not an acceptable provider, but yet our seriously mentally ill people are being treated effectively in the jails, and they're cycled through because, you know, they're incapable of caring for themselves. I'm appalled, and this has to be fixed systemically, nationwide. I mean, I know it's a big thing, you know, to undertake, but you know, this whole problem needs to be looked at systemically. We have a crisis here, a mental health crisis, and a large part of the problems that we're having, I think, in the jails stem from this mental health crisis, and that needs to be addressed. Thank you. Did you want to say anything?
So I would like for Vianna Serna to come speak about Elisa quickly, or, I mean, she wants to speak.
Hello everyone, my name's Vianna Serna. I'm the little sister of Elisa Serna, who died in Las Colinas, November 11, 2019. Unfortunately, she was neglected for 5 days. She was withdrawing from alcohol and heroin. When she was booked, she let them know that she had just taken drugs prior. But instead of putting her on protocol, they were saying that she was faking it. And we have, thank the Lord, we have 5 days of her life on video. And we can see how not just the medical staff, but how deputies treat our loved ones in jail. No one is God. And they treat our loved ones like they treat their dogs better than our loved ones. My sister deserves so much better. She left her 9-year-old daughter behind, and now Serenity has to grow up without her mom. because they don't want to take accountability. They just want to point fingers at, oh, it's the medical staff, and the medical staff wants to point fingers at the deputies. So I really hope that you can help our families, and please stand up to these people. Don't be scared of them. We need people who actually want to help. Thank you.
I would like to have Gina Burns.
Hi, my name is Gina Burns. I have two sons. My son Jeremy has severe mental illness. He has schizoaffective bipolar type, plus he also has learning disabilities. He was arrested when he was 18. He's going to be 47 in March. In 2017, Jeremy was arrested for a dirt and dagger, a pocket knife, on his way to the parole office. He stayed in jail. We had him, we had mental health court. They found him incompetent to stand trial. It took a year of him being untreated at George Bailey, where they have no treatment. All it does is exacerbate them and make them worse. Not to mention all those other years before in prison, exacerbated, isolated, and tortured. So what happened, they found him incompetent to stand trial. They're sending him to Patton State Hospital to be, I can't even say it, to be restored mentally to go to court. What happened the first day he got there, the very first day, he told them that he does not take his medication crushed. Mind you, he's a paranoid schizophrenic, okay? So they decided to take him down. Someone hurt their knee in that process the very first day. By the fourth day, my son was indicted and went to West Valley Detention Facility. And initially, when he went to court, he was allowed to take a plea. What the heck happened to the restoration process? What happened to the court acknowledging him here in San Diego that he was incompetent to stand trial? This is crazy. So there he goes to prison where he's abused and tortured by the correctional officers because they're ill-equipped, because he was out there in the sun. People that have psychotic treatment drugs aren't supposed to be in the sun. He passed out. He got beat up. They were trying to add more time to him. But no, we won. So either way, I tell them, you can't, the parole office, I said, you can't send my son, parole him to San Bernardino. He's not from San Bernardino. He's from San Diego. Did they listen? No. They still paroled him there. And when he was paroled there, I had to go and where my son was, and you'd think that they would prepare him with medications and everything that he had so he could function. They didn't do anything. I went down there. I took him to go to the clinic, and I paid $300 to get his medication. I took him to go get food stamps to get an ID, something that should have been done. He has learning disabilities. He's been out of the system all his entire adult life. So what happens, he starts decompensating, and what do? They violate him, and he's back in jail, going to court on this violation. And when you're violated, you spend like 3 months in jail, and you're supposed to be reporting to the parole department. He doesn't know where the parole department is. He's not from there, and it's too far. This happened for 2 years, mind you, 2 years out in the streets. Meanwhile, I'm looking for my son. Yusef even went with me down there, and that part of San Bernardino, there's nothing but mentally ill people all over the place. It's a miracle he made it alive. So either way, he's back down in San Diego. I finally found him, got him back down here. He's totally decompensated. I had to call for 5150 to get help for him. They ended up taking him to the psych unit. And I had to do it twice because they didn't want to be bothered. And so they let him go. He went to some hospital, but the Hillcrest Hospital called me, say that my son was there, that he had OD'd in his own medication. He's never had to take his own medication. Either way, he was out in the streets. He's trying to get help, and he's arrested for attempting to carjack. And guess who he's attempted to carjack? The police. What kind of stuff is that? He's trying to get help. And meanwhile in jail, meanwhile in jail, he's get another charge for gassing. If people don't know what gassing is, people that have been severely abused mentally and in isolation, they play with their poop and their urine. So he threw it at the sheriffs. So this is part of severe mental illness, but then too, they want to criminalize him. So right now, they're going to be sending him to a hospital somewhere. And I'm praying to God it's not Patton. And I'm praying to God that this cycle of repeated cycle for my son stops. When is he going to get the treatment? When? In my opinion, the state hospitals, the county courts, the state prisons, they're all in cahoots. They know what they're doing. They're the most vulnerable. Now, my other son, Bernard, he is an addict. In 2018, he was shot by the police under induced psychosis. And he was made out to be this criminal. He had machetes. Yeah, he had sheaths on him. He was in psychosis. So Peter West shot my son in the stomach and in the arm while he's in psychosis. My son still lives. Thank God, after 4 years in jail, waiting to go to trial, we find out the EDCO truck caught footage of everything. The police lied. He was the victim. Now, he gets out. Mind you, he's an addict. He needs help. He relapsed. He's out in the streets now. He was out in the streets in psychosis. Would be out in front of the El Cajon courthouse at that little park. He would be there because he knew I would always go looking for him to try to feed him. Well, 2 weeks ago, I got him a room, and I had to call 911 because he was in severe pain. He couldn't move. When they took him to Grossmont Hospital, they said that he's withdrawing from opiates and fentanyl. Okay? So he's in severe pain. Come Sunday, the addiction part kicked in, and he wasn't in so much pain. He walked out of the hospital back to El Cajon up there high. This was on a Sunday. I got off work. I went to go look for my son. I couldn't find him. The next day, he was at that spot again. I had to call the PERT team on Monday to come and help him. I said, because he has a severe infection. He has a severe infection. Okay, did they do anything? No, they did not. They let him stay there. Come Tuesday, because I told him he's a danger to himself or possibly others. He's not well. He's cleaning up rocks like as if he's an anthropologist thinking he's doing a good job when he needs help. So that was Monday. Tuesday, the bus stop is right there. He ripped the wiper off the truck and supposedly got into it with the bus driver. He's in jail right now. He went to jail, and he didn't call me. I kept calling the jail. I said, my son needs medical attention. He has not called me. I'm believing he's in severe pain. He can't get up. 3 days later, he calls me and says, Mom, I'm sorry I didn't call. I couldn't get up. I'm bleeding rectally. I'm in a lot of pain. And I told him, please, Bernard, sign a paper stating that they can talk to me. He did that. I called them again. I called medical, and I tell them about what he told me. And I told him already he had been to Grossmont, and he needed medical attention. And they're blowing it off like he's lying. They're telling me, oh, the bleeding, he's just constipated. This is the attitude that they have in these jails. That's why our loved ones are dying. So he's in the hospital now. And the same nurse, because I had to call for updates. I can't call the hospital. I didn't even know what hospital he was in. And then I called after the weekend, and that same nurse that I was talking to before that said that told me he was just constipated. That's why he was bleeding. He was laughing at me. I said, I'm calling for an update. He laughed. And then he said, your son is in his cell, ma'am. I said, no, he's not. He's in the hospital. He checked. He felt like a stupid, you know what, because he's in the hospital. And he wasn't supposed to give it up, but he told me he's at UCSD. So he's trying to be nice and help me out because he knows he's an idiot. So now he's still in there, and come to find out the reason for the infection, he has a fragment of that bullet from 2018 still close to his spine, which is infected, and it's in a bad way. Okay? So when is he going to get help? I want to know, why do they want to punish them when they need medical attention? He's bipolar. You let them know he's in psychosis. He's been in psychosis. When is the help going to come? When?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for taking so long.
Cheryl Canson.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Canson. Treat Me, Don't Mistreat Me, and the me is MI for mental illness and also with Moms Against Torture.
Yeah.
I stand here with my two sons who are struggling to receive adequate mental health treatment inside of prisons. And they were in the county jail before this, being held untreated, suffering psychosis, in crisis in the community. The police were called, and they are still in psychosis because they haven't received the adequate treatment. I'm thankful for Paloma and Yusef and all of you families' courage to not let your loved ones die in vain, to continue to raise our people's awareness that this is happening, because if you don't know, you don't know. And I'm so grateful because you helped me realize that my sons' lives are at stake. Their lives are at risk. And so I continue to fight and use my platform to elevate others' voices and amplify their voices to fight for their loved ones to receive adequate mental health treatment. Because as you see, people are losing their lives due to the lack of mental health care in jails and prisons. And what more can we say besides you hear the stories, you hear it from the horse's mouths? What more can I say? Besides that, we need adequate mental health treatment, or we need to be treated aside from jails and prisons for our mental health. We need mental health care needs to be provided in therapeutic environments that promote healing and restoration. They can restore and recover if they only have the adequate mental health treatment. You see, my son is in chains. They're being treated inhumanely, like animals, or even worse, like someone said. He's in a cage right here. He can't even stand up in that cage. Oh, you don't know how that hurts my heart. How am I supposed to live with that? I'll continue to fight for them and fight for others and continue to join forces. Thank you for listening and even caring. They're not asking for much. All they're asking for is empathy and compassion. That's not too much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have one last, Melinda, would you like to speak? Because you do have a daughter in custody. Or your sister, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's my sister. She's not my daughter, but I kind of have to stand in for my own mom because she can't do it. She can't do what you guys are doing. So I have to do it. Right now, my sister, she's at one of those locked places, Patson actually, and we're actually kind of happy that she's there. It sounds ugly, but the only option we have been having is her going in and out of Las Colinas, going to Central California Women's Facility, going to Chachuela. She's been in many other ugly places, very ugly, and it's been mentioned here, and I just don't want to say it again. But she's had very similar stories as the rest of you, and I'm pretty well aware what has been happening, because I kind of had to be looking around, what's going on? Like, why are people not listening? And the main reason is because the mental health industry has shifted the care of seriously mentally ill people to that department, to the sheriff's department. So right now that we're here talking, asking for help, they will come up with more programs, but these programs, they're gonna go for people who do not suffer like our family members have suffered. Like families are suffering, and it's families that they're called the worried wells. The worried wells are gonna get assistance. Even though we're all here, they're the ones that are gonna get, they're the ones that are gonna get whatever comes of this. And I encourage everyone else to properly address the issue. Serious mental illness is usually serious serious schizophrenia, serious bipolar disorder, serious major depression. Those are the main illnesses. There's others that can be included into that, but for the majority, it's those three mental illnesses that are like the most pressing. And I ask you, since you're the new person, we want change. Why is it that all these programs that the county supervisors have established, they keep on coming up with all these programs, and none of them are to help us? And Yusef, you were there when what's her name? Summer Steven she told me herself, oh, get my my secretary's number, and I was calling her when my sister was having a breakdown. I called her. I said, my sister's having a breakdown right now. I told you about her. I wanted to like stop this from happening again, because I know that each and every time that she goes and gets locked up, she comes out worse. She comes out worse. And also to include the medications that are given to them, they're constantly shifting back and forth. It has an impact on their state of mind. So then their medication is controlled when they're locked up, right? So then when they're released, it's up to them to take the medication according to however they want to. And it creates a whole lot of problems, a lot of problems. You know, my sister, she's not dead. She's not dead, but she's dead inside. And she can't speak. She does speak, but she can't speak for herself. And that's why I had to take it upon myself to see what is happening. Why are these people taking an advantage of people that cannot protect themselves, that do not have the voice to speak up for themselves? And then lots of tragedies have been happening to many other people. And this needs to stop, and this needs to be correctly addressed. And if you guys would like further information, I got a book. And I thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Melinda.
Now, I thank every family that spoke today and shared their story of their loved ones, and I will pass it on to Yusef Miller.
Thank you to all the impacted family members for sharing your stories. And I know how painful it is. It's traumatic to relive the same issues, whether your loved one has passed or whether they're still going on. Our impacted family members who are like Melinda, Gina, Cheryl, we're trying to keep them off the list by supporting them now while they're still with us so that they're not part of this tragedy. I would also like to say and remind everyone who's here today that we will have the chair of mental health. We're going to invite the chair of mental health for BSCC to be here. That is not Director Ganter's position here. And it's not something, I mean, it may be, she's going to tell us more, but there's going to be a chair of mental health over the jails. And we invite you back when we have that next forum, and others who can make it to discuss what happened in that situation. There's also going to be a chair of the medical health in all the jails. So our loved ones who didn't receive the proper insulin or didn't receive the proper blood pressure or seizure medication on time, that didn't receive the withdrawal protocol on time, that can be addressed there as well. So what we're talking about now is for the director of in-custody deaths, how that process will work, what her office is going to be about, what are the roles and responsibilities in that office, so that we do not grow our population. We don't want to have to make more of these shirts. We don't. We want our organization to not have a job anymore. So we're working for our own retirement in this phase, and we tend to do it along with cooperation from Director Ganter, who is very open, and I thank her for being here from Sacramento, along with her team. We thank you all for coming to talk to us, and we will continue this type of forum with the other chairs when they get here. But today is the Director of In-Custody Death Review, Director Allison Ganter.
Maybe this is the way to go. Thank you so much, Yusef and Paloma. Thank you so much. Of course, I have some prepared remarks, but just listening to people's stories, I really want to acknowledge your pain and your frustration and your rage and your yearning for answers. My job is easy compared to what you've been through, so I really I'm thankful that you're brave enough to share your stories. My focus is narrow. Our office focus is narrow. I'll talk about that. We're focusing on, unfortunately, the deaths that happen in our jails. But I do understand the role that mental illness plays. And I'll just say, at large, the system at large. This will be a focus of our office as well. I do want to acknowledge that. So again, thank you so much for having me here, for Yusef and Paloma for setting this up. I'm grateful and humbled to be here. You've built a movement out of tragedies and from the grassroots, and that's really remarkable. I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed with how you got here, and also Yusef mentioned the speed with which you got here. Everybody knows how, unfortunately, sometimes how government works. Thank you for those of you that have suffered a terrible loss, again, for having the courage and spirit to talk. Thank you to community members for coming as well. I'm here to listen. I'll share some information about our legislative mandate, some of my vision and goals for our new division, what we've done so far and what we plan to do next. This is tough and emotional, obviously, as all of you know. I recognize the need for urgency. I also want to be really, really thoughtful and take time to build this process properly. This is the first office of its kind in the state of California, and I want to get this right. That's going to take some time, and that's going to take a lot of conversations between all of us. I want to introduce my colleague, Michael Lee, before I start talking about our office. So Michael is our research data supervisor. He and I make up 100% of the division right now. I'll share a little bit more about staffing in a moment, but I'm really lucky to have a partner in Michael. And again, 100% of the division so far, and we're I'll share what we've been up to so far. Thank you, Michael, for joining me. So the purpose of this new division is to prevent and reduce deaths in custody. Again, something that's all too personal for too many of you here today. So for us to do that, we need to understand why these deaths are happening and what, if anything, could have been done to prevent them. That's my guiding principle. I don't presume to understand your pain at all, but I do want to understand your experiences. So my priorities for now are listening, learning, analyzing information, staffing our division, and transparency. I know that's a word that some of you have used, and I'll talk a little bit about that today as well. Our legislative mandate is fairly narrow. I want to be open about that. We're tasked with reviewing the investigations of each death in custody. And that begins with deaths that occur on and after July 1st of this year, 2024. So our team is going to be relying on the investigations of the sheriff's departments in addition to doing our own review. Based on those reviews, we will be making specific recommendations to sheriff's departments on policy, procedure, resources for people who are housed in detention facilities, physical plant, etc. And in turn, each department is required to respond to our recommendations. I wanted to make a quick note. It sounds like everybody understands that our responsibility is for city and county jails, not state prisons. There's a whole another office that deals with deaths in state prisons. We are specifically focused on county jails and city jails. So the recommendations that we make, again, will be very specific to a particular department, and they will be required to respond. But we're also going to expand our recommendations so that we're able to make statewide recommendations, to talk about best practices, to be able to share practices that make a difference. You know, we have very open conversations with law enforcement about what best practices are, what can be done. So those conversations are happening as well. The legislation also calls for us to make to participate in reviews in medical and behavioral health care in detention facilities, and focus on the delivery of medical care and mental health care. The legislature has not yet funded us for those positions. So for now, we are going to be focused on custody operations. When we have the funding to expand, we are also going to focus on medical and behavioral health care as well. So I came to this position in October, and I'm sure you want to know what we've been doing since October. We've been taking time to understand the processes that happen inside the sheriff's department when somebody dies under their care. We want to know what common practices are and not so common practices are that can either be applied as a best practice to prevent a death, or something that needs to be modified or eliminated because they contributed to a death. I am really committed to understanding what could make a death preventable. Again, that is part of my vision and our guiding principles. We're spending time listening to you, your community's advocacy organizations, so we can understand your experiences, that of your loved ones, and what information or resources could have been helpful to you in your personal journey. That's really important to me, and again, why we're here today. We are collecting information from jails when someone dies in custody. I'll talk about that in a moment too. It kind of begs the question, how does all this translate into government work? I know that can be really frustrating to understand how government works. So again, back to what we've been doing so far. Right now we're staffing the division. It does take time to fill positions in state government. Currently, Michael and I are staffing the division. Next week, we have a research team member joining us. We're working on hiring an attorney and inspectors and administrative help next. And our capacity for action is going to increase commensurately exponentially as we bring on team members. So I want to be clear about how we're moving, how we're staffing the division, and when we have additional funding, those positions will grow as well. So I mentioned we're going to be doing reviews of investigations of death in custody. What is a review? We're working really diligently on defining our scope, defining what's a standard for review. This is really going to be where the rubber meets the road, where I hear from you all, you know, what information is out there, what information could you have access to, what information can we have access to. We're really anxious to develop our policies and procedures so we can begin those reviews. Somebody asked if we had done a review yet. We have not, because we're hiring our staff, we're developing our policies and procedures, and again, we want to get this right. Again, the information that we're gathering here today is going to contribute directly to our policies and our processes for those reviews. In terms of transparency, I'm committed to sharing information appropriately and quickly. We will be, again, relying on investigations that are happening in the sheriff's offices. Those processes do take time. We plan to be as upfront as possible as we can about timeframes when we begin our reviews. We want there to be an understanding why things take time. We want you to be able to trust us when we tell you something is taking that time. I know that's something that we have to earn from all of you, but we want to be in that position so that when we share information, you can trust that. All of our reports and recommendations will be made public. We will make them easily accessible on our website. We will also be sharing the data that we receive in time. That's really important to us as well. We want to play, and we will play a role in connecting the community to information and resources. We're going to do our best. I'm going to do my best to keep you informed along the way. We have a really long way to go with this division. Our purpose here is to hear from all of you, hear your experiences, suggestions for the division. I invite you all, again, you've been so gracious with your time and your experiences. I invite you to share whatever stories you want to share. If you're not comfortable sharing here, and I understand that as well, I have a few business cards. I'm happy to pass those out. We also have, in addition to my information, and we can send this out as well, we have a email box, ICDR Public, one word, at bscc.ca.gov, and we'll share that with you all. We are going to be recording and analyzing all of the information we hear today. Every single word will be listened to, will be analyzed. This is information, this is data for us. And I know you're going to have a lot of questions for me. There's going to be some that I don't have answers to yet, and I emphasize yet. We're very, very early in the development of this division, and I know that's difficult and frustrating is not even it doesn't even, I'm sure, come close to what you feel. But your questions are important to me, even if I can't answer them. It's still information that I can use, and that means a lot. So I'm going to hand it over to Paloma. I know there's some questions that she'd like to ask, and when we get through some of those questions, again, I know you have all so generously shared, but I'd really like to hear if there's anything that you wished you had access to, or what would have been helpful in terms of helping along your journey as we build this division. Again, thank you so much for having us here today.
Thank you, Ms. Ganter. So I do have some questions. So what in-custody death data are BSCC collecting, and what are the time frames that the sheriff offices must submit them?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me if I talk? Or do I need that? Okay, I've been told I speak loud, so hopefully I can project. So right now, what we're collecting is two separate sets of data points from the Sheriff's Department. Number one is within 10 days of the death, the Sheriff's Department is required to send us the notice of the death. There's a state government code that requires the Sheriff's Office to send notice of the death to the state DOJ. We're duplicating those data, so we're receiving very basic information about the person who's passed, the date that they died, the location and the facility in which they died. If information is available about the manner and means of death, that is included. I can tell you for the most part, we're getting pending investigation on most of those. So again, we get notice, we're required to get notice within 10 days, and again, some basic data. We have a regulation that requires the Sheriff's Office to do an initial review of custody operations related to that death within 30 days. They are now required to send that report that they generate within 30 days of the death to us within 60 days. And again, it has a little bit more detail about the person who passed away, if there were any relevant medical information about their stay, information about custody operations and the incident that was going on around the time leading up to the death, including behavioral or medical issues. So we get those data within 60 days. So right now, we're collecting some pretty basic information, but as Michael and I have been going around the state and talking with people, we are refining those data. We're going to be refining them as soon as possible. Again, this type of a forum is really important to us because, again, we're not going to be able to collect every single piece of information, but what can we collect in that first 10 days or that first 30 to 60 days following the death? So right now, that's what sheriff's offices need to submit and what we're collecting right now, and we're working on analyzing and working on making that public facing.
And also, how will BSCC make these data publicly available? And will there be a website where families and community members can see those data?
So right now we have a website. It's informational in nature right now. Gosh, isn't that terrible? I can't say it off the top of my head. But if you went to bscc.ca.gov, you can go to the in-custody death review portion of our website. Right now, we're refining, as I said, the data that we're collecting. It will be made public facing as soon as possible. That is a huge priority of mine, something that we've talked about. I'd love to know, again, what information people are interested in us collecting. Again, we're working on refining what we collect. And while we may not be able to get or post the information that everybody wants or needs, the more we know, the more we can refine.
Will there be a way that family members and the community can provide information to the in-custody death division director, such as a web portal?
So I think that's a really great idea. And when you say something like that, I have my scribbly little notebook, and I know, Michael's here listening as well. That's actually a really cool idea. It's something we talked a little bit about back in November, and we're going to be working on that concept. I think it's really important for there to be a way, we're collecting data from the jails, but there's got to be a way that we can be collecting information from the community as well. So it's a great idea.
What is considered an in-custody death and will be reviewed by your division?
So right now, according to the legislation and our regulations, an in-custody death is something that happens when somebody dies within the walls of a detention facility. And currently, those are the deaths that our division will be reviewing. So somebody that passes away inside the jail for right now.
Well, thank you very much for answering those questions. And so then I will turn it over to Yusef.
Got it. Yep. Okay, this is the portion where we're going to take questions from the audience. And what we'll do is we'll try to be orderly and have we come up and, let's say, make a line over here, and then we can come up one by one to speak. Do we have anyone who has any questions that they want to ask the director on in-custody deaths? Please line up over here. We'll give you the microphone, and you can face this way.
And if people could please share what they would like to see as well, would be
Yes.
great.
Share what you would like to see. Oh, please, thank you. This falls off easy.
Hello. No problem. I have two questions. You talked about your investigations relying on both law enforcement reports and then also the ability to do your own independent investigation. So can you elaborate on the resources you will have to do those investigations? Because I think we can all anticipate issues with relying on reports from law enforcement themselves when it is their own facilities, and potentially their own ineffectiveness and negligence. So if you could elaborate on what resources you will have and what power you will have to do your own independent investigations.
So the legislation, as I mentioned, is very narrow. We are required to do a review of the investigations of the death in custody. So right now, as I mentioned, we're developing the scope of our review. We have an inspection division in our agency, so most likely part of our review will be modeled on our inspections that we conduct relative to the minimum standards in each facility. And yes, we will be relying on the investigations of the sheriff's office and their various teams. It's often not just one team that's working on that investigation. That is how the legislation was written. We do a review of investigations of the in-custody death.
Okay. I think it's important that if there are inaccuracies or things that seem off, that there is some sort of independent investigation or ability to challenge what law enforcement is reporting so that we really get to the truth of what is happening in the facilities. And my second question, and then I'll turn it over, is you also said that they were required to respond to your recommendations. Can you elaborate on what response is required? Are they required to follow them? What exactly are they required to do?
That's a great question. That's in the legislation too. Actually, they're required to respond on which recommendations they will take and the time frame in which it will take them to implement that recommendation. And if they aren't going to take one of the recommendations, they're required to include an explanation of why they didn't take that explanation.
And will the public know if they are taking a recommendation or denying the recommendation?
Those reports will be made public. So say we make two recommendations, they elect to take one and they refuse to take the other. Their response, both the accepting and not accepting, those will be posted on our website. And I'm sure we'll be doing some, data review of that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Ilka Weston. I'm part of North County Equity and Justice Coalition and Saving Lives in Custody campaign, as well as other organizations. As we have seen with our PubMed information, and that is something that is very vital, drug addiction is a disease, and it is linked to mental health. So when people are using drugs, they are not trying to have a party. They are trying to feel normal. And we don't have that education in our schools. And I know that's not going to be part of your situation, but will you have the ability to really try to have an impact that we have mental health hospitals, not overseen by our sheriffs, but overseen by medical professionals and nurses that are going to treat them as they are, the people that they are meant to be. We have criminalized mental health and people that are self-medicating, and that needs to stop. I have a son lying in a hospital right now, and it is because of our system. All children matter. It doesn't matter if they're 40, it doesn't matter if they're 17. And your position is going to do a lot for those families, every family that's lost that is here. It breaks my heart when I hear their story again and again. It keeps me up at night. So will you have that ability to help encourage a mental health facility for those issues?
So again, I don't know exactly what a recommendation would look like. As Yusef mentioned, we have 2 new members on our board, on our Board of State and Community Correction. One has been installed, a person that has expertise in medical care, and then we'll also be bringing on a person with expertise in mental health care. So I will have access to that person as we work through our recommendations. Additionally, not so long ago, we did a survey just speaking about substance use as well in detention facilities. Our agency did a survey on the use of Narcan, opioid antagonists, in local detention facilities. And our Board of Corrections recommended that the results of those surveys be directed to the Division of In-Custody Death Review for review as well. So there will be a connection to focusing on delivery of both medical care, which is likely going to be related to substance use disorders, and behavioral health care as well. I don't know what it will look like, and again, we're waiting for some funding, but
Yes.
it will certainly be a focus.
Yeah, because as you know, when somebody is brought into the jail, the question as they are brought in is very clear. Are you drinking alcohol? Are you doing drugs? And they are obligated to put people on medication right away. It is in the interview process. That is the way it is supposed. Now, if somebody says, no, I just drank today, they have to say they have a problem. Personally, if they say I drank today, put them on the medication, because that will save lives. And that's what we need. So thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you.
You want to hold it? Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. I just want to make sure I clarify and understand from a previous one. That's why I walked away for a second, and then I realized. So you're saying your power is to be able to make a recommendation to a specific department or a specific county's sheriff about a specific custody and death, and you're or in custody death, that you can say, this is what led to this is our recommendation for future procedures. Is that correct?
Correct.
And if they say, no, thank you, what happens?
We do not have authority to compel them to take that action, but they need to respond to us publicly that they're not taking such action. And again, that is
Right,
part
the
of
legislation.
Right.
Okay. And so is it also in the scope of your work that you will be making recommendations for policy changes statewide that will impact all sheriff's departments?
100%. That is a priority for me and for our office. So all of the individual data, again, from an individual death in custody, we'll make that specific recommendation. But that's why we have some fantastic research staff members, because we intend to use those data to make best practice or statewide best practice and policy recommendations.
And what power does, is the state required to take your recommendations as well?
So a statewide recommendation from our office would be up to the individual department if they took those.
So it's the
practices.
same as
So
with
the
other
one
sheriff?
thing, so our office does, we develop the minimum standards for the operation and construction of local detention facilities. So we will have the ability to develop recommendations eventually into regulations, which we can then inspect for compliance with.
Okay, and my last one. So it sounds like this is all of the same question. So the recommendations are about like procedure. are you also able to make recommendations about staff and to say, like, this person acted out of accordance and therefore it is this person's fault that this happened? It is good for you to reprimand or fire this person.
That is not within our scope.
Okay, thank you.
More of a recommendation than a question. First, a little background. I've started multiple companies. I work with entrepreneurs and I lead them. And I've led multiple companies. And the first thing that's obvious to me is you have a leadership issue with the local jail. You also have a cultural problem in the jail. And I would just encourage you to operate with a sense of great urgency. There are some very easy fixes. They jumped right out to me when I met with the sheriff and when I studied the investigation of my son's death. And many of the stories tonight have similar issues in common. There are people still in jail that may become a statistic. You need to operate with a sense of urgency. And I would just implore you to look at the culture as well as some of the issues. Thank you.
Good evening. You know who I am, and again, congratulations on your appointment. Seriously, you have a heck of a lot of work to do, but I'm happy that this exists, and I want everyone, and everyone knows, this, as you know, started here in San Diego. SB 519 started this, and that was these families that started this. So what I just have a couple of questions to clarify, but I also want to make some suggestions as well. If you know, I think you already know that for San Diego, the oversight body in San Diego has made well over 25 recommendations on how to reduce deaths in custody over the last 2.5 years. About half of those have been implemented by the Sheriff's Department. But I contend, and I know that these families in the room contend, and the new executive officer contends, that every one of those are reasonable recommendations to reduce drugs getting into custody, to reduce expanding jurisdiction over medical care providers, to increase the transparency for these family members, to not seal medical examiner records, to create a family liaison protocol, a program in which they're actually communicated with, as opposed to just having it in policy and these family members are not communicated with. What I'm saying to you is all of those policies, all that work that these folks have labored over for years can be immediately instituted, statewide, at least, recommendations to other departments in the state to make the work of these folks not go in vain, and it could save lives across the state right now, even with your limited staffing. That's number one. Number two, to clarify, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. Critical incident review boards or any kind of investigations that are done internally that allegedly are protected by attorney-client privilege, will you have access to those investigations?
I don't know yet.
That's number two. And then finally, what I'd like to clarify, and I know you, and I know of you, and I know you'll push forward for this, but help me to understand. Anybody who becomes unresponsive in a jail right now and is transported to a hospital and dies under care of the Sheriff's Department will not be covered by your office, will not be investigated by your office. It's not a custody death for your division, correct?
Correct. The way the legislation is written, it will take action to change
Correct.
that.
Correct. And I know that that's not you, and I know that you will be pushing forward to that. I just want to make sure everyone here knows that about 51% of the deaths that are in custody are in hospitals. So that's a major problem, and I encourage you and I implore you, as you move forward, help make that change at the state level. And one of the things that San Diego County did very well just a couple of days ago is outside the box thinking, compassionate release. I know you're starting now. I know we're just doing in custody in the facility, but then we do hospital, but then also those folks who are compassionate release, because many times the incidents that led to their deaths, outside, even if they die within 6 months, started in the jail. They didn't get the medical care in the jail. They got injured in the jail, and somehow that gets overlooked. So I encourage you, and I'm simply making recommendations to you because of all the hard work that everyone in this room has done. I encourage you, thank you. You have your work cut out, and these are people that are going to help you be successful. So thank you.
Oh, we can get a stick back? Okay. I was wondering to put it on it. All right. Hi there. I had a question, but I'm glad that well, it was already asked. So my next thing is more of just like a comment about. about the healthcare in our jail facilities, and I guess this is actually also directed at you as the researcher as well. One thing that I've seen when I've talked to folks who are currently in custody is that there's a significant amount of medical malpractice happening in our jails, and I think we need to be very cautious about falsified data, but also deliberately misleading data. And one of the things I remember hearing was there was a woman in custody in Las Colinas who had a severe toothache, and she would be sent to the medical unit, but there was no nurse there. And they already knew that there was no nurse there. She was just sent there anyway, and then sent back. And then it would happen again in another 2 weeks. And it would happen again in another 2 weeks. And then when she complained that, hey, I've had this toothache, it's getting worse, they look at the record and it says, no, you've been to the medical unit 3 times already. No, you're just lying to me now. And then there's no benefit of the doubt there either. They just automatically assume that they're lying too. And I hear about, or I've heard about these kind of situations. I've heard about people getting recommended, what was it, like a saline solution to wash their contacts as well, which almost blinded the woman as well. And yes, so definitely look into the data. If there's no other record of something happening, I would say be very, very suspect of that. So thank you. Just please check all those records thoroughly and look to see if there's even more records there, please. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm hoping that will stick, but.
It won't.
Hi, Allison. My name is Grace John. I am an attorney, and I represent a number of families here whose loved ones have died in custody. And I review death reviews all the time in all of my cases. So I have some very specific things that you should be asking for. If you are reviewing the quality of the Sheriff's Department's in-custody death reviews, you should always ask for the intake records. The medical intake records for Vianna Granillo, Elisa Serna, Matthew Settles, all identified them with serious mental or medical issues, which were subsequently not addressed. Most critically for Vianna Granillo and Elisa Serna, they both identified as suffering from drug and alcohol withdrawal, and they did not receive any drug or alcohol withdrawal treatment. So that would be my first thing. My second thing are safety checks. As you are well aware, the deputies are required to do safety checks every 60 minutes. That is not happening in most sheriff's departments. It's the subject of a number of issues. Matthew Settles, he did not receive timely safety checks. Saxon Rodriguez, he did not receive timely safety checks. Elisa Serna did not receive timely safety checks. There are a number of families whose loved ones are dying in custody because the deputies are not conducting safety checks every 60 minutes. The other issue is they are not conducting safety checks in a staggered way. So they're just doing it rote on time. If an inmate wants to commit suicide, they know when the deputy is going to come around and they'll commit suicide at that moment. So the safety checks have to be randomized in addition to regular. So if you're reviewing an in-custody death, where are you going to find the deficiencies in the safety checks? It's not going to be in the records, because sometimes they fill out the records in advance so that the safety checks are happening every hour on the hour. What you're going to have to do is look at a lot of jail surveillance video. And this is the other problem that all of my families are facing, is that their loved ones die in custody, and yet they never get to see the video of their loved ones. The final moments of their loved ones' deaths, which are recorded, are either A, lost forever because somebody didn't preserve the video, or B, hidden forever from the families, who are then forced to sue to even get video of seeing their loved ones die. I would urge, and again, there are limitations, right? But one thing you can do is you can ask them to preserve every single video file and every single audio file related to the deceased inmate. Certainly, that should be one method of preserving all the evidence. Again, safety checks, intake records, which are always going to identify serious mental and medical health needs, and then video. Those things need to be requested, preserved, and stored so that families, even if you're not able to provide them answers or you're not able to provide them the justice that they seek, at least they have the opportunity to get that eventually somehow.
I'm Tom Packard. I'm a member of Showing Up for Racial Justice, North County. And actually, my question kind of is a follow-up on Grace's. You know, there are a lot of frustrations about definitions of a natural death. And I guess the question would be, in the reports that you think you're going to see and you'll review, will you be able to look at them in a way to say, this is not a natural death, this is a death that involved some of these inadequate behaviors by either sworn staff or medical staff, and can you do any follow-up on that? I think, will you be able to, ferret out some natural deaths that maybe are not natural deaths and be able to reflect that in your conclusions?
If there is a place for questions, we will find a place to ask those questions, but changing a determination or questioning a medical examiner or coroner's determination is outside of the scope of our office. But I really do appreciate the question because it raises other things for us to think about.
Good evening. Hi. My name is Pastor Reverend Dr. Connolly. My husband and I are workers here in our community. And first of all, I think that would be in order. There's a lot of pain in this room, and people have shared a lot of intimate things. And for the family members that are with their loved ones here today and all the pictures that are there, I think that it would be in order to love everyone right now that we would just take a moment of silence. Is there anyone, just for the family members and those that are hurting in the room today, the sheriffs that are here, we are building bridges to solve problems. So if we could we just take a moment, just a moment of silence? Thank you. For all the families that are here right now that are hurting, I would like to make a suggestion, Ms. Center. This is going to be a very long haul. It's going to be a lot of work, but it's dealing with people and pain. I would hope that you and Michael could be budgeted for either a community-based point of reference, as maybe part of your team would be like a chaplain or someone that can also help you with the pain that you will be hearing, exposed to, and also that the families can also have a point of reference as they're dealing with their problems and the pain and the suffering thereof. I know it would always help if you can call in or be supported by someone at the time of, vulnerability. And the other thing is, I would like to suggest, is that the community, as all of this information is going about, the data is being collected, that they have an opportunity to readily be available to you, whether it's a volunteer team or whatever it may be, to kind of give you information as well, to support you when there's a death that has happened in custody, because sometimes families know things also at that time that could help while you're doing your research. So those two things just for now, and I'm sure that there'll be more suggestions later, but my heart goes out. I've had a struggle and a fight ourselves in regards to fighting for justice in a big way, and but I want each of you to know that if you just got anything out of this today, community is hugging each other right now. You are loved. You are cared for. It's very important that these bills go about and that we work together as a community and with our law enforcement and with everyone as a team. We are building bridges to solve problems so that we can reduce the death of in custody, death and in custody while they're in custody. But the main thing is that it's dealing with human life. Your family members are important. There's a lot of hurt right here, right now. We're going to walk away from this meeting, and I just pray that you know that you're loved and that you're cared for. And if anyone has any things that they would, can't resolve on your own, please reach out to us. Let us help you. Don't walk away from this meeting feeling like you're not heard or cared for. And it's holiday time, and people are hurting. And if there's anything for suicide or anything of that nature, please reach out. We're here to help.
You're good, Pastor. Thank you so much for those kind words, Pastor Connolly. For those online as well on Zoom, because of time too, we do want to be able to give you a moment if you have any comments as well too. So if you are online, please put your name in the chat and we can sign you up. And then also if you're on the phone, after our last commenter here, you can press *6 to unmute yourself to make your comment as well too. Thank you.
Okay. Before the last commenter, what Dr. Connolly said was very important. You're going to be looking at, as far as your team, I'm directing this statement to your team, you're going to be looking at the worst of the worst. We already have people in custody, and that's a bad time in their life. Now they've died, and that's your job. So self-care for you guys. Someone on the team that deals with your self-care, this is really important. I thought that was very introspective and a very deep look at your position. You're going to be looking at what the loved ones are suffering from. You're going to be hearing from them. It's going to be tearing your heart apart. And please make a safety valve for your team. Incorporate that as you're building your team, your staff, please, someone who does that.
Thank you. It's a really,
Do you want me to hold it? No, you got it? Okay, I
it's a
got it.
really important suggestion. I don't have,
Yeah, self-care is really important. I just wanted to, I'm going to put myself out there and because I mentioned before, I'm a recovering addict myself. I got 2 years clean and sober. I dedicate my recovery to my daughter. I could have gone the other way, but I choose to honor my daughter's life, and that's why I say we do recover. I was in Las Colinas. I did time there 2 years almost, my whole life I've been there. And I can tell you first off that the booking process from being there is inconsistent. The deputies there that I've been there treat you, I was treated, I'm gonna say I statements, I was treated there terribly. I was housed not right. They didn't ask, I mean, just from the beginning, the way they treated me was just, it was not right. Once again, I'm gonna be very transparent myself, okay, because that's what I want from you is transparency. The various times that I've been there, I didn't get I told them, I am an addict, I am mentally ill, you know, I take psychotic medications because I have a mental illness as well. And they didn't give me my medications right away. I had to tell them various times, put in medical slip after medical slip. I didn't get my medications right away. The only way I got my medications right away is when I told them that I was going to harm myself. Why did it take that long? And then, only then, did I get to take my medications, and I was taken into a room where they call it the, they put me in a turtle suit, which is where they have to strip me of all my clothes, and the deputies know, that sir over there, that gentleman knows that means, they got to put me on suicide watch, and only then did they give me my psych meds. That's not right. I have to tell them that I need, that I was going to hurt myself in order to get my psych meds. That's how bad because my daughter had just passed away. This was 3 months, and that's not okay. For me to say that in order to get my medications, I mean, something has to change. It has to change. I'm a mentally ill person. I just got off drugs, mentally ill. Why does it have to be that way for me to get what I need when I get arrested for a violation? Please. There needs to be consistency. There needs to be something once I get booked. There needs to be, it doesn't matter what happened. It needs to be clear across the board. Something needs to change. It's not right. It doesn't matter. Just, this is the way the law is. Let it change. Let it just be clear across the board. Okay, you're booked, that's it. Please, let it be consistent, clear across the board. You don't have to like your job. This is what your job is, sheriff, whatever, medical staff, whatever. Just do your job. Be respectful. Don't judge us, whatever it is. And it doesn't. You're being booked. You don't know. Not guilty until. Come on, please, please. We're human beings. Oh, he left already? Okay, well that's convenient. Anyways, thank you.
Hi, my name's Melinda, and I would just like to know, is there gonna be anything put in place so that policy and rules and regulations change in accordance so that we, the families, can help our sick family members? Like the HIPAA law needs to change and allow us to participate in the care of our loved ones. And I also want to know if the standard for helping our mentally ill people, will that change? Because right now the standard is danger to self or others, and even with that standard, the times I've called and it was in a situation like that, I was still ignored by the sheriff's department. And it was twice. And out of these 2 times that I called out of desperation, they just waited until they had enough evidence to put my sister behind bars. So she spent time, and again, her mind was deteriorating while she was locked up. So the standard needs to change to need for treatment to prevent further deterioration, and you guys need to really look at their history. They do have a history, and people that work in jails or whatever, like they say, oh, I don't know anything about that. Is that true? Really? I had no idea. They pretend they don't know, but they know that these people are sick, and we need to we need to have them like accept what the truth is, and see, the family members were here out of desperation. People that can afford private insurances, they do not have to go through this at all. At all. And there's a two-system, what's it called? A two-system, a what? Yeah, two-tier system. It works for those people that do have enough money to care for their sick loved ones, and what we get prisons and jails, and that needs to be changed immediately. I would like to be able to talk to my sister like she's like I could work with her, instead of like you're trying to care for someone and they're trying to fight you. Come on. These people need help. A lot of people need help, and this needs to be corrected immediately. And this has been going on for too long. And all this time, people pretend like they don't know. So that's why we're here today, right, people?
Yeah, that's right.
Allison, a couple of questions. Number one, are you empowered to make regulations? Like, for example, could you promulgate Title 15 regulations?
Yes.
That's pretty good. Okay, so, and then you could promulgate regulations that would govern how sheriff's departments would have to respond to requests for information from your division?
Have to think about that. There are, as you know, I am not a lawyer, laws around Public Records Act requests and information that is sensitive or confidential. As far as, we really have to figure out, our regulations govern the sheriff's office, how they operate the facilities themselves, and it might not extend directly to information that they need to provide to the public, if that makes sense. It's jail operations.
Sure.
It's not necessarily, and again, I see why that's really frustrating. My brains are spinning in terms of recommendations for sharing information, but it might not be an appropriate place in regulation.
But would you be empowered to, for example, set a regulation about what an adequate in-custody death review must have?
Yes.
Okay, so that's very helpful. And then I was very much reminded by the family. So Allison, we'll be watching. We'll be paying attention to the regulations that you're promulgating. Also, do these regulations, does that form the basis, do all the Title 15 regulations form the basis for passing a BSCC certification or review?
Yes, so another, one of the main functions of our agency is that we conduct annual, at a minimum, we visit every single jail, and we conduct an inspection on every single jail every single year at a minimum. We also do targeted and unannounced inspections, and the basis for those inspections is the compliance with Title 15 standards. There's many of them. There's a subset that deals directly with in-custody death that we need to focus on and change, and we're going to work on that. And so there's a direct connection to those regulations. We review, we're required by law, our agency, to review and revise regulations regularly. Right now we're in the process it's a little bit of government, but it's helpful to know that we're in the process of reviewing the regulations for juvenile detention facilities right now. We are going to be beginning a review of the adult minimum standards here shortly. To make a connection to a comment you made earlier, Grace, we recently, it was regulations, goodness gracious, talk about government. They take a little while. But we did change our safety check regulations to ensure that, again, the regulations provide that the agency must do random safety checks. They can't be every 60 minutes. You know, you explained it perfectly. Thank you so much. We changed our regulation to require that supervisors are reviewing staff safety checks. So it creates an extra, safety valve so that they are having review from other people. So there is, and all of this comes from public input. When we look at our regulations and revising them, we take public input. There's going to be specific input from the in-custody death review division right into those regulations. So there's another mechanism for public comment.
So just so the family knows, Title 15 regulations are really powerful, you guys, because every time the Sheriff's Department in San Diego is criticized for doing something wrong, whether it's the state auditor's report, whether it's CLRB, whether it's the NCCHC, what the Sheriff's Department will say is, hey, but we pass our BSCC certification, our annual audit every year. We're in compliance with all state standards. And so if we can increase the regulations under Title 15 and have a heightened standard, we're going to make it harder and harder for the Sheriff's Departments to pass all of these annual inspections. So that's one thing to think about. The other thing, Allison, if I could, and Michael, if I could throw this out there, and the families were wonderful to remind me. There's also, I represent the family of William Enyart. They're online right now. William died of delirium tremens in a San Bernardino County jail at West Valley Detention Facility. One of the things that is common in his case, but also the case of Brandon Yats, are intercoms. So when inmates will press the intercom button to ask for help, there are repeatedly issues with either the intercoms not working, the deputy control tower where the intercom calls are going. Sometimes that is either not functioning, unplugged, nobody's paying attention, someone's taking a nap, whatever it may be. So that's a huge issue. And that's a great part of Title 15 regulations if we can start monitoring intercom calls. But also one of those intercom calls, when they are recorded, have a tremendous amount of information about the circumstance of an inmate's death. And so having that type of information available would be tremendously powerful. But also just records about how frequently the intercom is being used, whether it's being answered, and whether it's functioning are actually critical in situations like Brandon Yats, which was Brandon was murdered when he was calling out for help. Also, other situations, Vianna Granillo was also calling for help on the intercom and was not responded to. So thank you very much.
I really appreciate the comment about intercoms. We have operational minimum standards, and this is another division. It's not the in-custody death review division. And we have Title 24 standards, which are physical plant standards. And it can depend on the year in which a jail was built. We are getting better at data collection in our agency, again, in another division, not Michael and I. And we did notice a lot of times, because when we do our facility inspections, we talk to the people that are housed there. We go around and we push buttons and swing doors and test things out. And we found that so many times intercoms are not working. Our team really focused on that in some targeted inspections that we've done. So it's interesting that we bring that up. It's just been a data point for us. So it connects all the dots. Thank you for bringing that up.
And I would like to also add that a lot of those are related to the audit report. In custody deaths when we had it in 2021, and intercoms was part of that. And I would also like to have your office, if you haven't already, to transpose that with where we are now with the report that the Sheriff Martinez put out a sort of update on where we are as a county in those areas, as far as fixing those areas. So it'll be helpful as a foundation of where we are in San Diego County and other counties to follow that kind of model. Not every other county was audited, but I'm sure every other county has these kind of problems. So along with our complaints on what we're actually seeing, the audit for what it's called for, and the the fixes that the sheriff has claimed. As a matter of fact, just recently, the sheriff put out an email about how far they are along in fixing the progress of fixing these issues that were demanded by the audit. So that gives you a sort of picture of where we are right now.
Thank you, Yusef. And we do have one comment online, so thank you so much for waiting so patiently, Greg. Greg 9, if you at this time, you are unmuted, so please feel free to unmute yourself and speak.
Enyart, and I thank Paloma Serna, Grace, and everybody there. Having somebody cry out for help that they don't feel good, it's a 911, and they're being harassed back on the intercom is unacceptable. That is how my son died. Everybody ignored him, and when he lay dead on the floor, they walked right past him, knowing he was critical. So I don't really think that it's about policy and procedure. I think it's about whether you care or you don't. And people who have been found to walk away or not respond or harass somebody back when they're in desperate need of medical care should be fired immediately. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And they should have somebody that does these checks on these facilities that is non-biased and unconflicted. Once a year is not enough. And time we don't have, because innocent people, just as one lady said, they're innocent until proven guilty, but that is not the way the system is treating them. They are guilty until they're proved innocent, and that is against the civil rights, and that is not okay. My son was not a criminal. He didn't steal. They arrested him falsely on my property, saying they wanted to talk to him. They didn't talk. They just went in and proceeded with whatever they felt to do. And my two kids who were nurses were both here, explained them explicitly on the withdrawals of alcohol is the most deadly thing you can die of. They ignored that all the way to his death. So time is of the essence. I can't bring my son back, but I don't like to hear people say it's going to take time. Damn it, it doesn't need to take any more time because many innocent lives have been taken by the deputies that want to turn the blind eye or cover it up or not give me an autopsy report for a year and a half because they want to figure out how they want to cover it up. It's unacceptable. My son should be here today, and he should have never been taken off my property. I should have said something. And I'm going to tell you, all those deputies need mental health checks. They need to be put through many tests before they are even entering a jail facility, not just fresh out of military either, because they have issues to begin with, a lot of them too. So I feel that there isn't time. Action needs to happen immediately. Our state has Governor Newsom throwing money at fish that really don't matter. Put it where people matter. Let's make it about the American people and lives to be saved. So I don't buy time. I'm sorry. I know you're new, but I'm sure you are not new to what's been going on. Let's take some affirmative action. Hire people. They just hired 87,000 IRS workers. They've got money to do that, but they can't hire people to do these inspections on these jails. And let me be clear. They should be non-conflicted with any deputy or sheriff. And anybody that has any medical problem, they should be sent to a hospital to have a full examination before they do anything, because they don't have the license to do that. And one man brought up that it is medical malpractice. They should also extend the statutes of limitations. When you find out your son or your daughter or your aunt or your father, mother, whoever the loved one was, that you have 6 months while you're grieving, you don't know what hit you? It's like somebody hitting you out of the blue. 6 months is not acceptable. There should be at least a minimum 1-year statute of limitations on an in-custody death. Because by the time people really realize what happened and they sit on these autopsy reports, 6 months goes by in a snap of a finger. This is not acceptable. We are American citizens, human beings, and they treat animals in the Humane Society better than they do people. My son was starved. He had no food in his stomach. He was not let out of a cell for 2 days and ignored repetitively over the intercom. He told them that was 911. Nobody did a damn thing to save him. Nobody sent him to a hospital. He never had a chance. He was DOA, and that is on West Valley Detention Center and the state of California's hands. And that's the first time I've spoken publicly to a group of people about it. Now that the hurt is subsiding, it'll never go away. I just learned how to balance it from side to side. Now I'm angry because you sit there and you say it's going to take time. They've had time. Dissent decrees were in place. Nobody does anything. And if they're not willing to do their job, fire them, because there's 1,000 other people that need jobs that really would take that job to heart. They care. And also, to anybody that participated in ignoring somebody who needed help should be fired immediately without pay. And those are my words. Thank you for letting me speak, everybody.
With the last caller and the statute of limitations, we talked about that among the families here and how the statute of limitations have really tied the hands of the families. And if there's some way we can make the clock on the statute of limitation only start after all the data is collected, then starts 6 months or 1 year. But after everything is collected, because it takes so long and you can't make a move because you don't have everything, and then when everything comes in, the statute of limitation is gone. So if there's some way we can start the clock after the point that they have the videos, they have the medical report, intake report, all the things they need, then start the clock. And that would be the suggestion from the North County Equity and Justice Coalition, Saving Lives in Custody, California.
And yes, also in my daughter's case, the sheriff, they'll take advantage of that statute of limitation, and where we had a lot of does in our case, and where time was up, and then they finally released the names of the individuals who were involved in my daughter's death, which was plenty.
I want to thank everyone for coming out and sharing your thoughts and your feelings. I think that's all the questions and questions that we had. Thanks for sharing. There's a lot of notes. We took a lot of notes, and those will be figured out, studied, and see if they can be massaged and managed and probably reshaped to do some good so that no one else has to sit in your seat. So thank you for being here with us. And I'll turn it over to Paloma. I'll turn it over to Allison to say a few words before we close.
Thank you, Yusef. And this is on. Is this on, or do I just yell?
I think it was on. Let's see. I talk so much. Wow, it wasn't even on.
You sounded great, though.
Thank you.
Thank you again to Paloma and Yusef for hosting us here today. And again, most grateful to those of you willing to talk to a complete stranger that you don't know and trust yet. I hope in time that trust comes along. We are listening. We're equipped to move, and we will do so as soon as possible and be taking everything that you said here to heart. I have a few, like I said, I have a few cards here. You can go on our website and there will be more information. Again, icdrpublic@bscc.ca.gov is another way to get in touch with us. We want to continue to hear stories and experiences and suggestions. It's really, really important for us to hear. And again, I said it earlier, I can't imagine how much strength it takes to share your pain and your rage with us. It's not bouncing off of me. It's being absorbed. Please understand that, and we're here to listen. We'll continue to do so, and we have some great partners in Yusef and Paloma to stay in touch. Again, I'm really grateful for the time you gave me here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. You could reach us. We're always out in the community, and so a majority of you guys know who we are, but you could always look up North County Equity and Justice Coalition and Saving Lives in Custody, California. We thank you once again for being here. Thank you.